All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to start off by giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Haragah Kodash, and double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone and Ruel. Peace and blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect, the Bayat, the Wadah, the house of David. This is the brother Malak coming back at you with this truth. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go here first, right? So, obviously I put the eyes is connected to your brain, which is able to give you thoughts. It says, yes, eyes link to your brain through the optic nerve, and light turns into signals that your brain changes into what you see, which helps spark your thoughts and ideas about the world. How eyes and brains connect. Light entry, light goes inside your eye, signal change. The back of your eye, the retina, changes light into your electrical messages. The cable, the optic nerve, acts as a cord to carry these messages to your brain, right? Now, putting that BCI, which is the brain computer interface, in the midst of your forehead, right? Where your eye sockets, right, and your brain connects together. So it actually gives you the thought. It actually is able to bring in your thought process, man. Right? This is what's going on, right? It says the cable, the optic nerve, acts as a cord to carry these messages to your brain. Making sense. The back part of your brain, the visual cortex, reads the messages so you know what you look at. From sight to thought, memory. It says what you see helps bring up old memories in your mind. Choices. Your brain uses eye data to help you decide what to do next. A big network. Sight is just one part. Your brain mixes what you see, it says, with other feelings to make full thoughts. Okay, so that's it on that. So let's do this here, right? Let's go to exoskeleton. Right? An exoskeleton suit. Now, this is the BCI, right? I put an exoskeleton suit as a part of the brain-computer interface ALS patients. It says, yes, motorized, right? Or motorized exoskeleton, right? Exoskeleton suits are actively being paired with brain-computer interfaces, BCIs, to assist ALS patients. The integration bridges the gap between a patient's intact mental intentions and their loss of physical muscle control. You see, it says when combined, these two technologies function as a single closed loop neural rehabilitation system. Okay. It says how the BCI exoskeleton system works. It says instead of relying on joysticks and physical buttons, which individuals with advanced ALS cannot use, the system reads thoughts directly from the motor cortex, which I just read about with your eyes. You see, it says neural intent. The ALS patient imagines a specific physical movement, such as taking a step or lifting an arm. Signal detection. It says an impaired sensor array like Neuralink or BrainGate or a non-invasive EEG cap records the electrical spikes in the brain. AI translation. A microprocessor running machine learning algorithms decodes these neural signals in milliseconds. Robotic. Execution. Right? It says the decoded intent is converted into an electrical command that instructs the mechanical joints of the exoskeleton to move. All right. It says current clinical applications for ALS. While many commercial BCIs focus heavily on text-to-speech communication, research centers are explicitly running trials to combine BCI with physical robotics for ALS, upper limb mobility. It says ongoing trials such as those by the BrainGate Consortium, right? It says use neural data to guide robotic arm and hand exoskeleton that allows patients to complete basic activities of daily living, ADLs, like eating, drinking, and brushing their hair independently. Lower limb, right? It says ambulation, right? It says advanced studies from institutions like the Kick School of Medicine at USC is testing by a radical BCIs. It says these not only let patients move robotic legs via thought, but also feed artificial tactical sensations back to the brain to stimulate the feeling of walking. All right, that's all we need on that, right? So let's go over to the word, right? Convergence. Right? Convergence is a tendency to one point character of a fact of converging, right? It says to tend to meet in a point or a line, okay? To incline together, right? To come with together, to bind, turn, tend toward, okay? To turn or bend, converged or converging, okay? So now let's go here, right? Let's get out of there and let's go here. Let's play it.
Convergence.
Convergence. It says the act of converging, especially moving towards union or uniformity. All right, uniformity. It says coordinating movement of two eyes so that the image of the single point is formed on the corresponding retinal areas. The state of property of being. All right. It says evolutionary biology, right? Which we know bio means life or the body, right? Independent development of similar traits of features as a body structure or behavior in unrelated or distantly related species or lineages, right? The independent development of similarities between separate cultures, the merging of distinct technologies, industries, or devices into an unfed or rather unfiled whole, right? An unfeed whole offers a variety of services related to the convergence of the internet and mobile phones. You see, so now you have the understanding of the word convergence, right? Or the word convergency. Okay. All right. And then there's a reason why I went through all of these here. So you understand. All right. So now let's go in here. Okay. So this is the connection. You got this is the whole process, right? So you have it starting here. It says pattern recognition, right? Processing, okay? Control signal, device, feedback, intention mental event, signal acquisition, right? Pre-processing and feature extraction, okay? This is the whole process of the BCI. You see, the brain computer interface. Now, let's go over to here, right? The bio-digital convergence, okay? Transhumanism. You see, the transhumanism vision of humanity is taking shape right before your eyes, gradually, seamlessly, and without anyone suspecting. They are participating in the transition to their very own demise. It says first, right? It says first they are conditioned. They conditioned you to the idea of technology, so you embraced, right? Embraced as part of the human advancement, then insidiously infiltrating these technologies, right? Okay. It says infiltrating these technologies into every aspect of your life. They made you believe you can't live without them, from communication, businesses, work, eating, working out, sleeping, entertainment. You become a slave to the technology. It no longer serves you. You serve technology, right? It says from flip phones to smartphones, computers, wireless earphones, smartwatches, smart rings, hand microchip implants, right? And ultimately brain chips. See, look at this, the BCI, right? The exoskeleton. You see, merging man with machine, the fourth and fifth industrial revolution. Okay? It says sold under labels of efficiency, convenience, and next stage of human evolution. They slowly feed you their transhumanist dream. The same way they got people to line up for vaccine, for the VXs, right? It says they want people to embrace insidious technology where it is no longer just a gadget or an accessory or a smart device. They want technology to become part of your body. Merge man with machine, natural with synthetic. See? All right, here, look at this here, the BCI right here. Look at this, okay? The Internet of Bodies, right? IOB. You see, it says the Internet of Bodies, IOB, is the extension of the Internet of Things, IoT, right? That connects the human body to digital network, right? It relies on internet connected devices worn implanted or let me see, implanted or ingested or modal biometrics deliver medical treatments or alter bodily functions, resulting in a vast ecosystem of untimely, right, connected behavior and health data. Right, it says the Internet of Bodies and 6G technologies, which is high frequencies of radiation, ionizing radiation to be exact. You see, but they try to tell me that it's not. They're lying, right? That's how you're going to have those grievous sores, those burns, that pus, right? Cancer, right? It says 6G technology are at the core of the making of the biodigital convergency a reality. You might already be aware that the Internet of Things, IoT, right? It refers to a network of physical devices like surveillance cameras, 5G cell towers, smart meters, right? Smartphones, etc., that connect together into a centralized system, a cloud, hooking you up to the cloud. That's why I always say that, right? It says the Internet of Bodies, IOB. It says takes it even a step further, where the devices will start to be integrated within the human body, such as brain chips, digital pills, smart tattoos. That will allow the monitoring of your body processes, collecting health. Right. That's why you got data centers set up. Okay. All right. Data centers. You got what is that? Eventually, you have CBDC, central bank digital currencies, right? Credit scores, right? And so on and so forth. You see, smart cities, 15-minute smart cities, surveillance, monitoring, analysis, reporting, and tracking. Okay, right? Gideon, Palantir. Gideon is pre-crime. Palantir, that's pre-crime as well. You see, where everything is focused, drones and everything of this nature, man. All right, a tracking device of an RFID microchip and a BCI brain computer interface microchip. Okay, it says monitoring your body's process, collecting health, behavioral, and other personal data and transmitting it over the internet, thereby making you a nude, right, within the digital network, part of the hive mind. Right? Let's go over here. It says nanoparticles to remote control brains of mice. You see? And that's what they were using. Right? It says the 6G network enabling wireless signals to be transmitted at the speed of human cognition, right? 100 times faster than 5G, will serve as the catalyst in the merging of the human physical and digital realms. And it will not only provide the necessary infrastructure for IOB, right, and have integrated AI, right, which is artificial intelligence, but it will also be used to conjunction with nanobot technology, giving birth to the Internet of Bio-Nano Things, right? IOBNT. IOBNT, the hybrid network that connects the biochemical biology and electromagnetic. Right, that's why they had chlorium and them jump shots, man. You see, they just had all the other stuff. They had all that other stuff in there, but they also had chlorine, which is third on the element table when you look it up. Right, it's electromagnetic. Right, SARS, so specific absorption radiation. Right, syndrome. Okay, right. It says dominions by capturing 6G electromagnetic energy and transforming digital 6G signals into molecular commands, and it will turn the human body into an antenna to be used as an energy harvesting and biodigital routing. All right, transhumanism goal and technological, all right, singletary, transforming humans into turning them into cyborgs, living organisms with robotic and mechanical parts that extend their capabilities, connected to centralized hive mind. Right, the psychopathic transhumanism belief they can become godlike through technology by removing genders, eliminating sex between man and women, and thus childbirth, and they aim to create humans in labs and effectively becoming their own creators. Right? It says creating a new and genderless, mindless, and soulless transhuman race. This is the very definition of Satanism, the inversion, everything. It says the inversion, everything natural, human, and divine. Okay, all right. So that's all on that. Right, that's all we need on that. Now let's go into here. Right, let's go into the article that I have. Right, this is the article. Brain-computer interface advances help reconnect mind and body. Brain-computer interface technologies help people regain communication, movement, and sensation while revealing fresh insights into how the human brain works. You see, advances in the neuroscience and engineering has transformed brain-computer interfaces into powerful tools for restoring lost function and decoding neural activity. All right, so let's listen. Oh man. Okay, so it's not gonna let me play the article. So I'll just read. It says, "Oh, you gotta register." So I'll just read it. It says, in the 1870s, scientists discovered the mammalian brains carried electric current, paving the way for the field of psychological. Right, nearly century later, right, a computer scientist in the University of California, Los Angeles, published a landmark paper proposing the idea of brain-computer interface, a direct communication link between the brain and the external, right, and the external device like computers and prosthetics, right, via the brain's electrical activity. The idea, which seemed like science fiction 4 decades ago, eventually gained momentum, with various researchers offering proofs and concept with real-world applications. Read on how to learn how brain-computer interfaces have allowed people with motor or speech dysfunctions to control robotic limbs and communicate and regain sensation. Right? It says while brain-computer interface devices have obviously, what is that? Oblivious clinical applications, makers of the technology also understand its implications far better understanding the human brain beyond helping people with motor or speech dysfunction. Right? It says recording brain activity can help scientists decode neurodynamics, With new and improved devices making it to the market, researchers can now obtain unprecedented insight, right, into the inner workings of the brain, which can in turn improve the design of brain-computer interface devices, as you can see right here, right? Okay, it says pushing for brain-computer interface technologies the last a lifetime, while brain-computer interfaces become more practical reality for people with paralysis, right? Bioengineers, right, are facing logistical herds in designing these devices. Once implanted into the human brain, the devices experience acts from resident immune cells, leading to fibrous and damage to the probe. Now, researchers are exploring different materials and engineering new designs to develop technologies that will withstand these challenges, such as advances could ensure the patients do not need repeated brain surgeries to implant new devices. All right, it says the early success of brain-computer interface implants. A brain implant helped a man who was completely paralyzed to communicate with his family when doctors placed a chip in his brain motor cortex. After initial unsuccessful attempts, a team of researchers, right, led by Nicholas I don't know how to say his name, Barbenheimer, right, a retired neuroscientist at the university, right, decided to try a method where the man listened to a tone and learned to change the tone by thinking specific thoughts. This enabled the man to communicate single words. Eventually, he was able to compose whole and intelligible, all right, sentences, even sending messages to his son. All right, let's see how much more we got. Oh, a little bit more. Right, brain computer. It says brain implant helped a man with paralysis regain sensation. Right, a diving accident in 2020 left Keith Thomas paralyzed from the chest down without any sensation in his hands and his wrists. Doctors implanted an electrode arrays in Thomas's brain that could read the brain activity and deliver electronical stimulation. A research team led by Chad Bolton, right, or Bolton, right, a electrical, right, medicine researcher at Northwell Health recorded Thomas's brain signals when he imagined the sensation of touch, right? It says conveying these signals to his muscles through wearable simulation patches on his skin into the sensory areas of his brain. Thomas regained the ability to feel touch in the right wrist, and about 6 months after the device was implanted, he could eventually wipe his nose, scratch his mouth, right? Scratch his mouth while using the device. Speech brain computer interface deciphers using thoughts, right? It says while brain computer interface devices can help users by translating their brain activity into speech, this can also leave users fatigued. To bridge the gap, right? Francis Willett, right, a neurosurgeon at Stanford University, and his team develop a speech brain computer interface with the ability to decode imaginated, right, sentences. They trained machine learning algorithms to decipher neural patterns linked with the imagined speech, allowing people to communicate audibly by just thinking about what they wanted to say. All right, so there you have it, man. So let's go here, because all we need is a few scriptures, right? Let's go to Revelation 13 and 14. It says, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles, left-hand miracles, right? I read to you about the exoskeleton. and how it's hooked up to the brain-computer interface. Then I read to you about eye retina scans and many different other things of these nature. And then we went into read about certain things about how patients and ALS patients and all these things. So I read to you. These are all left-hand miracles where this man is going to use a brain-computer interface, right, to make these people stand up, walk, right, and so on and so forth. These are left-hand miracles, right? It says those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image. The image is what? The system, right? To the beast which had a wound by a sword and did live. That's the ancient pagan Roman Empire, which was wounded by the sword and did live, which they came back as the revitalized, right, or a rebirth, renaissance, revived Rome, Babylon the Great, aka America. Okay? And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak, right? And they making it speak. You see? AI technology and so on and so forth, right? It says, and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed, right? Those who don't take this, those who don't take the BCI and the RFID microchip, which is the mark of the beast, right? As well. It says, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark. The word mark is charagma, right? It says in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell. And that's how it's going to, buying and selling is transactional. That's why you have these big box stores gearing up, right, for these things. That's why they're closing out these mom and pop stores, right? Because they want to put everybody into the focus of big box stores so they can track, trace, and control them. Okay? It says, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, right? So you got to go into the agora places. You see, it says, save he that have the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that haveth understanding count the number of the beast. Right. The number of the beast is 666. The universal product code is 12 digits. Now you're going to have your own personal. This is what these devils are going to do. They're going to give you your own personal tracking number with the involvement of 666 involved in it. All right. You see? It says, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 636. Now, let's go over here to Revelation 16:2. You take that chip, or the BCI, right? That high frequency of radiation is just going to have pus, hellcoast, right? Grievous sore, pus, blow out of your forehead, man. Okay? You're going to get cancerous sores right there. Cancerous sores on your hand, right? You see, that's like going under a radiation machine, right? And you start to see the cancerous things start to develop, right? You see, that's why they tell people who have cancer they got to go get radiation. That's madness. All right. It says, and the first went and poured out his vial upon the earth, and there fell a noisome and grievous sore, hellcoast, right, upon the men, right, which is a pus joined together, right? Cancerous, grievous sore, right? It says, which had the mark, right? Charagma of the beast upon them which worshipped his image. Now let's jump down to verse 10. And the fifth angel poured out his vial upon the seat of the beast, and his kingdom was full of darkness, and they gnawed their tongues for pain, and blasphemed the power Yahweh of heaven because of their pains and their sores, hellcoast, right? And repented not of their deeds. Now you take that ship, Yahweh Shem Yahushai is going to destroy you, man. Let's go right here. Let's read it. We're going to end it here. So this is Revelation 14:9. It says, and the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast in his image and receive a mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, righteous anger, right? And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone, ICBM intercontinental ballistic missiles, in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb, which is Yahushua, right? And the smoke of their torment ascended up forever and ever. That's just a time period, right? Because eventually it's going to go out. The fire is going to die down. Smoke is just going to be cleared, right? But that's over a time period. It says that they have no rest, day nor night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. Here is the patience of the saints, and here are they that keep the commandments of Yahweh and the faith of Yahweh Shai. So with that, we're going to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Arakah Kodash, and double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone of Ruel. Peace and blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect, the Bayat Dawadah, the house of David, Kwam Yasha Allah, Abad Babal, repent ye, for the kingdom of Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai is at hand. Shalom.